Hi, Heather Leavitt Martinez here. I'm a visual practitioner and a tech host, but I wanted to make a quick, well, hopefully quick, how-to video on how to take pictures of flip charts and charts that you're creating in a meeting. This is really for graphic recorders, graphic facilitators, and visual practitioners. How to take a chart during a meeting, clean it up with your phone, and send it to a client. This was a request that I had from one of our colleagues, and this is my quick and dirty way of doing it to the best of my ability. So let me show you. What you're going to want to have on hand is a picture of a recent chart that you took. I'll also give some tips about how to take that picture. And I'm going to be using an app called Snapseed on my iPhone. And you can do almost all of this with your camera settings. If you have an Apple phone, there's a way to clean up photos in camera settings as well. So I'm going to show both of those, but first I'm going to show Snapseed. Here we go. So Snapseed is this little icon here. It looks like a little leaf. And you're going to click the plus button and you're going to select some photos that you have already taken here. And I'm going to choose a photo that I shot yesterday, and it is the agenda flip chart. As you can see, it's a little blue, right? Now I have these last edits here, so I'm not going to cheat and do that. But what I want you to notice that I took this picture outside in bright shade, meaning I was in the shade, but as you can see over here, it was very bright outside. And you'll notice that it is a little bit blue because it is in the shade, but we're going to clean that up. So I'm going to go down to Tools. And the first thing I'm going to do, notice that I tried to square it off and get as close as I could. Now you can get all the way in and get right to the edge, but I don't ever want to accidentally mix. I don't want to accidentally crop something. So I try to leave a little bit of space all the way around. But before you adjust any color, the first thing you want to do is crop, because if you start to adjust color, anything that's on the outside is going to have it's going to affect that. So if I choose, it was under free crop, I can pull in each one of these sides, and I want to bring it just in far enough that I'm not cropping off any of the information, but I'm also not leaving any information around the outside. Great note to self, don't write all the way up to the edge like I've done here. Now you can see I've cropped out all the extra edge, and I've got this nice white background here that I'm going to try to match. So I'm going to go to Tools again, and this time I'm going to go to Tune Image, and I can go up and down. I can just scroll up and down, and we're going to start with brightness, and you'll notice that I have a little scale at the top. I can go left or right. So if I go darker here, you'll see if I go to the left, it goes dark. I can bring it all the way up to the right, but my white isn't totally white yet. That's fine. I can always go back and adjust this brightness. I may also want to adjust the contrast a little bit. That'll also help with the brightness, but you notice that my gray is sort of going away up here in the upper right-hand corner, and my highlights here. That's sort of lightening it. This is sort of darkening it. I'm just going to pop it just a little bit. Saturation. Now, if in the process of doing the brightness, I've lost my red and blue, which I haven't really, but I can also make it even more saturated. Or if I take the saturation away, it'll make it a black and white image. So I'm going to go ahead and pop it a little bit because I want those reds and those blues to really pop. And then I'm going to go to ambiance. So what ambiance does, you'll notice that if I scroll one way or the other, you'll notice that some of the text from the one behind it might be showing up. So it gives you more detail of maybe the paper, right? So I can pull that away, and it's making it a little bit more white. Not a lot though, and I don't want to lose my grays, so I'll leave it somewhere in the middle. The shadows, I don't have any shadows in here, but it might be also looking at the black point. Notice it's making things more dense. I don't want that. I lost my blues doing that, right? So I'm going to take that back and keep that at 0. But if you are having a problem with keeping your blacks black, using the shadows, great. And then warmth is the same thing as temperature. So when I look at this, and you may not be able to see it from the video, this still looks, the background looks a little blue. That makes it a little bit more blue. Going to the right makes it more yellow. So I want to put it in the middle so that it's pretty, so it's pretty neutral. Okay. And in the upper right-hand corner here, you see this little icon. That's going to show me what did the image look like previously. What an improvement, right? Yes, so I see that now. So I think this is good. So I'm going to hit the check mark at the bottom right-hand corner. Now, the next thing I'm going to do, and I may or may not need this, is I'm going to choose the selective tool. And this selective tool is great if you have an area that might be a little darker than the rest that you want to pop as pure white. So down here, there's a little plus button, and I'm going to click that, and a little B is going to show up. I'm going to make sure that I'm not in the red, I'm not in the blue or the black, I'm right on the white. And you could see that little circle was changing. And again, I can choose brightness, contrast, saturation, and structure, but that's for this area only. So it's going to do an area around here. And again, I can go lighter or darker. So again, if you have some fall off, meaning if your lights, when you were shooting your chart, you've got some fall off on the corners or an area that's just sort of a dead spot in your chart, you can brighten that up. And if you want to add another one, I'm going to put one over here. I'm going to brighten that up. I don't want to brighten it up so much that I lose my gray boxes, but I want to brighten it up enough that I'm getting the whitest white I can. So I might pull this down over here. Look, I can move the whole thing. You're not seeing a huge difference in the video, but you will see a huge difference if you have a dark spot like that, how you can make it brighter. Okay. So this is that was the selection tool. And again, I can go in and adjust the contrast or the saturation. That's how bright your color is going to be. The structure is really sort of like detail. Okay. So I'm going to hit that check mark. And then I feel like I'm finished here. I've taken care of the brightness, the contrast, the warmth, and the saturation. And then I'm going to hit export. And I'm going to export that. It's totally exported, which means it's back in my camera roll. And that's what it looks like. So from here, I can email it to my client, or if I'm going to use something like Turboscan, and I want to put together a PDF, in the lower right-hand corner here, I can choose the picture button, and I can choose this one, and then say I want the next one is the mission. And then I'm going to add another one. And this one is the sustainable garden, right? Maybe I'm going to add one more, which is the purpose. And then I'm ready, right? So if this is photo, but I don't really like it, maybe I want to darken it up a bit, I can make a further adjustment here. I can hit next, and I can look at this and say, oh, wait, I want the purpose above the mission. You can use these little icons to the side to drag them. And if I say, oh, I don't want the sustainability garden, I can hit the minus there and delete that. Okay. And now I can send this in the lower right-hand corner. I can email it to myself if I feel better about that. I can email it as a PDF. That'll put it all in one image. If it's a JPEG, it'll be separate images. Or I can send it to, it looks like I can send it to the iCloud. Yep. So I'm going to save it as a PDF or email it as a PDF. And I'm going to email it to myself just because I want to see how that comes together. It's telling me that it's 2 megabytes, which is great for emailing because it's not going to be too big. You don't want to be more than 10 megabytes if you're going to email something. Okay. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen and show you what that looks like when I open it up in Acrobat. Okay, so what I've done here is I have automatically emailed myself this through Turboscan, and now I'm just opening it up in Acrobat, and I notice, oh, my gray went away. That's probably something that happened in Turboscan, but notice that my images are all in one file. So I may want to go back and make sure that Turboscan didn't adjust my images more than I wanted it to. So I can always go back and check that. I'm also going to go and check. We know that this is a couple of megabytes, so that's fine. And it looks like the quality is pretty good. I'm going to zoom in a little bit so I can see, if I zoom way in, what's the quality like. There is going to be a little bit of jaggedy edge, but I am zoomed so far in here that it doesn't really matter. If I go back out to being able to see the whole thing, like this says 75%. If I'm at 100% and it looks good, then I know that it's going to be fine for viewing on screen. Okay. So let me show you what it looks like if I were to just use the camera settings in my camera roll to adjust the image. Okay, I'm going to go to my camera app here and click down here. This was the one that I just cleaned up, so I know what that looks like good. And now I'm going to go back to the original, this one. Okay, so let me show you how I'm going to make the adjustments using the edit feature in my camera roll. Again, the first thing you're going to do, go down here, click this so that you can crop it, and you're going to drag in the sides right up to where you want to crop. That's the first thing. And then notice if you don't have it totally squared up, you have these options over here that can help you make it bigger or smaller on the bottom or from side to side. If you have a parallaxing problem, that's meaning if the your camera wasn't completely parallel to the object that you were shooting. Now over here in this little icon, I'm going to touch this. I'm not going to touch auto because if I were to do that, actually I will to show you what happens. It thinks it's smart. It didn't make it any better. So I'm going to go back to the original. That's what this little back button is. And then I'm going to start out with exposure. This is sort of like brightness, but it's really the exposure of your camera when you went to go take the picture. And I'm going to pop that up just a little bit. I can go back and adjust these anytime. Brilliance, I'm going to skip that and go to highlights. Ooh, so that first exposure piece kind of messed with a little bit. So we can kind of play with the highlights. Let's leave the shadows. Let's pop the contrast a little bit. The brightness is really going to help, but I don't want to lose my color there. So we're going to see if we have a saturation. Bring back some of that saturation, which looks pretty good. Now I'm wondering if I need to go back to the exposure a little bit and play with it to see if that's going to help clean this up. See what the brilliance does. It just adds a little bit of a hue or a pop to it. I can go back and adjust any of these as needed. Contrast is really, it's not a whole lot there. I feel like, though I do like this particular app, I feel like it's not really giving me the same, it's not equal to Snapseed. Warmth, this is an important one here. I need to pop it from blue to yellow and find that neutral place. It looks pretty good on screen in terms of the recording here, but it doesn't look great on my camera. And I can't do that special where I take different areas and make it more bright. So I'm just going to skip all of these other options. But again, I can hit done and I can save it like that. And let's just go back and see how does that compare to this. To me, this looks a little bit brighter, especially my blues. So I really like Snapseed for that reason. And if you want